Afternoon, this is Charlotte Pierce. I'm the producer of Indie Office Hours and Face the Book TV on Google Plus and YouTube. And this is our umpteenth edition. I actually haven't counted, so I don't know how many we've done so far. But we are all about the process of publishing here. And I know there's a lot of other shows, places you can find information, but we try and get into the nuts and bolts of the publishing process for indies, independent publishers. That's people who have, from 1 to 30 books maybe, who are not a gigantic publisher. This includes self-published authors and many small publishers, including traditional type small publishers. So I'm also a publisher in the Boston area in Massachusetts, and my special guest today is Steve Carlson, who is one of the founders of the Independent Publishers of New England, where I am currently co-president, and is living in the beautiful town, the publishing hotbed of Hinesburg, Vermont. So, Mary, I may mute you because I think we got a little bit of an echo. Mary Rowan is also here, and she's an author of two books now, actually 2.5, because I think her first one is being republished by a different organization, Book Trope. So Steve, can you want to give us introduce yourself and tell us what you're up to? And I know you know a lot about reviews, and you're one of my role models in indie publishing, so you better say something good.
Well, I don't know if there's all that much good to say, but
no.
I'm actually at a very slow period in bringing out new titles because I've been experimenting with blogs and different things, but getting back to accepting some more books to publish. I think on the review thing that you need to be clear that there's more than one kind of review. In other words, there's the major reviews, which you should always try to get if you can possibly get them. The New York Times, the trade publications, Library Journal. It's a big job trying to even get looked at by those, but you can sell thousands and thousands of books if you succeed. And
right.
So that's what I think of mainly as reviews, but then there are also the things like, Amazon is a big one in that you want a few reviews there, and you want to have 4 or 5 stars so that people see that, so that if you've got a book on, say, stamp collecting, or just as an example, people are looking for a book on the subject. Well, if you have several stars and others don't, then they're more likely to choose yours. It's two different things, really, I guess.
What have you found is, like, let's take the question 1 on our event page here. How can I get the attention of respected reviewers? So, like, you mentioned Library Journal. Is that one you always go for? You must have a relationship with them by now.
Yeah, it's it's actually a little bit looser than it used to be. Sometimes nowadays they'll look at a book if it's almost the pub date. It used to be that they wouldn't even think about it unless they got a bound galley at least 2 or 3 months before the pub date.
Okay, so that was one of the questions too. When do I send out the galleys for reviews? And I know a lot of indies, like we were talking earlier, tend to just, they're so focused on getting the book done that they, it's done, and then they start the reviewing. So
well, ideally it should be 6 months before your official publication date. That's the ideal.
This is for the traditional reviewing community.
Yeah. For any pre-pub reviewer, and that includes all the trade publications. In other words, and you really just can't send Library Journal or Publishers Weekly or any of those publications. publications a review copy after the pub date. You're just wasting your time.
I see.
I mean, unless something really major happened.
Or like a current event.
Yeah, yes.
You know, if you've got a book on Ebola that came out last year, and
they won't review it, but actually, the Library Journal might be doing a story on Ebola books, you know, and that's another advantage of sending them in. You know, it's in their library, so when they do articles, they have it. So, but
and should you send them to places like, I don't know, CNN or something like that? I mean, there's authors on there all the time.
Yeah, well, that gets to the kinds of folks that you approach after the book is out. Right? You know, you don't want to be on a radio or TV show until the book is available. So timing is everything.
Okay, so this is a different thing.
Way in advance. But indeed, you know, I've had situations where I send out galleys, and you know, the author has a great interview, and the book isn't available yet, and it's practically useless because on a broadcast interview, for example, people need to be able to act immediately and satisfy, you know, their immediate desire for the book, and if it's not out for 2 more weeks, they forget about it. But totally different situation.
But so if I have a book coming out on January 1st, is it too late to get review copies out?
Again, you have to look at the look at who it is, right? I mean, you've got the pre-pub reviewers that all want to review it before it's available because they're reaching out to the trade. That's Library Journal and Book List and you know, Publishers Weekly. They're the ones who let the bookstores and the librarians know what's coming up, and so they don't want to review it after it's already available. They're telling you what's coming out. Then you've got other major reviewers like, you know, the New York Times, which would like to review it about the time it does come out, but they want to have it around long enough to read it, you know, so that they can do it on the day it comes out, maybe, you know. And then, you know, it's the difference between galleys and review copies, I guess. A galley, by the way, really doesn't. There's a myth in the small press community that a galley is really the same as a finished book, but you just call it a galley. If you have that 6 months ahead, then you can certainly do that, you know. But I don't know why you would. A galley is an uncorrected proof. It's like the book in the shape it's in 6 months ahead of the official pub date, and you publish it cheaply, and but you know, make it look as much like a book as you can. And
yeah, I know our friend Pam goes to the Espresso Book Machine at the Harvard Bookstore and does galley proofs, or whatever you call them, review copies, review galleys. You know, they're a little expensive over a printed type book, but at least, you know, it looks like a book, covers there.
Yeah, I usually just go to a regular digital printer. I mean, like the kind people use for, you know, print on demand, and and it's actually cheap. I usually do about 50 galleys, and it's not terribly expensive. It's a couple bucks a book.
Yeah, for the book type of books that you do, yeah. Okay, so we've got Mary. Do we have you on now? No audio still, but you look nice. Anyway, Mary's got 2 novels, Steve, and has done an incredibly good job of getting out there and doing signings and things like that. I'd like to hear what her take on. Maybe you can type it in the event page, Mary. You know, like how you feel like you've gotten reviews. I know you've been interviewed by a lot of people. You're kind of cruise the blog tour, so and so forth. Steve, have you gotten into the blog tour circuit?
The blog tours. I've tried that, but have not succeeded very well with it.
Well, I guess you could call this one it's a video blog. But as far as getting, I started to ask you this, but getting the attention of reviewers, should you send the galley with a nice cover letter and then call them at Library Journal, or?
No.
Don't call them.
If you ever call these people, you're on their blacklist for the rest of your life.
That's good. How do you really feel about that, Steve?
Well, really, no, it's how they feel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, good.
They do not want calls.
Period.
And every situation is different too. I find that I now use a trade distributor, for example, and there's some publications, actually including Library Journal at this point. I've been successful with them in the past directly, but it's almost better if my trade distributor, your distributor makes appointments with the major trade publications, and they bring in their pile of new books coming up in the pile of galleys or whatever, and that's actually quite effective. And it also, the other thing about this type of review is that they need to know that the book is going to be generally available out there, that it's readily available to the trade. So if you have a trade distributor, then it's going to be out available immediately.
And who is your trade distributor? How do you?
I use Midpoint.
Midpoint, yeah. And you also, I noticed, have some reviews on Midwest Book Review. Is it Midwest?
Well, that's a. They specialize in small press.
Okay.
And so that's one that you don't send galleys to. You send the finished book, and that's Jim Cox's organization, or I guess his daughter Mary Cox, I think, is running it now. But they do massive numbers of reviews. They don't review it unless they like it, so all their reviews are positive. Sometimes you have to correct their grammar if you quote it. But
are they online or print? Or they send to libraries and things like that?
They're online, and very, very nice folks.
Yeah. That Kitty was really enthused about them, and but you don't have to pay them, do you?
No.
Okay.
No.
What's your opinion about the paid reviews like NetGalley and?
Generally speaking, you don't get much respect for a paid review, but they vary, of course. I mean, the paid reviewers I know of are Forward Magazine, for example, has a paid review branch. Okay.
Forward and yeah, okay.
But you certainly get a lot more mileage out of their regular reviews. It makes you look a little bit desperate, but
I've heard that NetGalley, again, they don't do it unless they don't publish it unless it's a good review, right?
Yeah. I'm not. I thought NetGalley distributed electronic galleys.
Oh, maybe they don't do reviews.
Do
Yeah.
they do reviews too?
Mary, do you know? Hmm. You can type it in the event page if you have a comment about NetGalley. But Kirkus uh, is it paid also?
But Kirkus has both a
Hmm.
free and a paid. Yeah.
Yeah. And doesn't Publishers Weekly have
Yeah.
a paid thing? Did they go
Yeah.
ahead with that?
Yeah. And certainly if those um uh if those let's see how you know the fact that respectable, highly respected traditional publications have paid review opportunities, that's inherently going to be, it's going to weigh better
Hmm.
than somebody who's just set up to get paid to run reviews. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, that's a good
and,
point.
and I think that's happened partly because even places like Publishers Weekly have admitted that that they can't. I mean, you got a million books coming out a year. They don't have the staff. And
Yeah.
so books that would not get into, you know, books that would automatically be shredded otherwise, okay, you pay them, they'll look at it and review it, and it's got to carry more weight than, you know, um, uh, it's going to carry some weight anyway.
And
So,
Forward is not too well respected.
Forward distinguishes. I mean, if it's actually in the print publication, Forward reviews as a
Mhm.
regular review, it's respected. It doesn't sell the kind of the numbers of books that Library Journal does, but
Because they're
um,
not going to publish a review of a book that everyone else thinks is bad. I mean, it's not going to look good for them.
well, I don't know. Reviewers always differ. Uh,
Yeah. Hmm. So, is it in getting, the creme de la creme of the reviews, like my friend who got on the cover of the New York Times book review?
mm,
um, would just persistence, would knowing somebody help? Having a good author platform?
sure.
What's all those things? I mean, should you drop a name when you send your galley? So when Steve Carlson said that, I should probably send this to you.
Well, look, if you know other authors who have written reviews in the New York Times, it it's okay to contact that person and say, look, do you think you'd be interested? And then that person can call, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the New
Mm-hmm.
York Times and say, look, there's a book coming out I'd like to review. So that's an
Mm-hmm.
excellent way to do it if you know such a person, and there are quite a few people who these are people you might run into at writers conferences and publishing conferences, and um, uh, you don't want to be too blatant, but they don't they don't want to go and say, look, it's a lousy book, but this is my friend.
Yeah.
But yes, who you
Right.
know is
And
can be very important.
should you mention your awards? You know, a little story about the book, or what makes it interesting to the readers of that particular publication?
I don't know. Certainly you include all the relevant
Hmm.
information, but
And for
I
a regional book, you'd want to contact your local media, but that's probably at the publication date.
yeah. Your local media. I mean, once again, if you're gonna hope for a big story, you might contact them ahead of the pub date, or And also, you know, pub dates are kind of fake anyway for the most part. With small press books anyway, with most books, not all of them, but unless you're coming out with a book that's going to have, you know, the new Haruki Murakami book isn't going to come out until, you know, midnight, you know, and people line up at the bookstore,
Yeah.
including me. But
well, I'll know where to find you at midnight.
yeah, actually, the new one is out, and it's a disappointment. But
oh, I'm sorry.
But but most of us have an official pub date, and just make sure that the books are in the whole distribution system by the pub date, so that people can get it.
So they can at least order it, right?
Right. But you're already selling books on your website and places like that prior to the pub date, as soon as you actually have the real finished books and not just the galleys.
Yeah. So a good planning strategy would be helpful for all this, I think. Not something that I've ever really focused on.
But lots of, I mean, my books always usually come out in January if I can do it, and then maybe I've got them in September, you know. But
yeah.
But if it comes out in January instead of December, for example, it's a new book for a whole additional year, as opposed to
okay.
whether it's, you know.
So you don't want to necessarily get them by the holiday season.
Well, you know, if you want them by the holiday season, you want it, you know, out by March.
Oh my God!
Because it's got to get into
and you don't mean St. Patrick's Day, do you?
No. It takes a long time to filter through everything it needs to filter through to actually be in stores and on the lists of things that stores are going to carry for the holiday season. And, you know, rushing something out to get it out by December 1st is not, in most cases, going to do much good.
I know that you may not be on social media very much, but I was curious about, you know, if you come across an incredible review of your book on social media, is it ethical to take that review and use it? I mean, of course, you should contact the person who wrote it. I mean, have you ever done that, or have you come across somebody?
I think when somebody puts something in writing, you know, that you need to attribute it. Why would they write it if they don't want it quoted?
Right. But just try and contact them.
I think it's good to contact them. Yes. Yeah.
Because I had a review of a book. I had, you know, sent an email to someone, and she sent me the book, and then the book came out, and my review is on the back. I never even had a clue she was going to do it. But it was a nice poetry book. But I said, you know, by the way, you should let me know if my name's going to be on it. Mary, do you have any other questions, either by chat or by unmuting yourself? I keep thinking I hear your voice, but maybe not. Anyway, we're getting towards the end of our session. We've covered most of the. NetGalley does cost about $400 to send review copies out.
And that may be a valid substitute for sending bound galleys. Probably doesn't cost any more. I know a number of publications accept them. Not all of them do. But
yeah, I mean, you got to wonder if some of these reviewers will take it the same way as an online. You know, will they give it the same attention? And you know, it's kind of, I think it's probably a less sure thing than, you know. having to deal with a physical product that comes in your office.
Well, one thing I thought I'd mention, just in terms of the other kind of review, and it's the Amazon ones that are very important. We all sell, even when we're in bookstores, we still sell half of our books through Amazon. It's just, so what it looks like there is important no matter what. But one good place, I mean, everybody reads Dan Poynter's electronic newsletters, but he has this other one called Publishing Pointers Marketplace, and you can offer review copies of your book, and it's other publishers and people like you. And
what's it called again? I'm sorry.
Publishers Pointers Marketplace, I think it's called, and it's another free newsletter. But if you can offer review copies to readers who promise to review it,
right?
And they tend to be serious people who will, they're not just going to promise a great review for a crappy book. So if you need a bunch of reviews on Amazon and don't have other people, to do it, you can get a bunch of them pretty quickly that way.
I've seen people asking for people to go to their Amazon page and give them a good review, which to me is just like, if there's something a little bit queasy that makes me, you have to take your lumps, I think. But when I'm just cruising books on Amazon and looking for something to read, those reviews are definitely important. I mean, I try and look at the balance of negative versus positive, and the actual quality of the writing of the review. If it's a well-written review and they don't like the book, then I might take that more seriously than a
right, yeah,
fabulous, amazing book. Buy it.
Right.
Mary thinks it's unethical to ask for good reviews, but do ask people for honest reviews, and I have experienced that with Mary. She said, "Can you review this?" And I really appreciate any sort of feedback, and she has really taken those reviews that I've given to heart. I feel like she's probably implemented some of the suggestions. So that's good.
And I would add that if you have 100 reviews and they're all 5 stars, nobody's going to take that seriously.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Anybody will tell that this is the author's family.
Yeah. That's what I said in the advertising for this session.
Any major author has negative reviews mixed in with the positive ones.
Yeah. But and then for jacket cover reviews, those come from pre-publication galleys. Are other authors just as good if they're well known, or what's the best mix of jacket reviews? Because those are important too. Once you get people to stop at the bookstore, turn over your book and read those, what's the best mix of those?
Well, that would be if you're certainly anybody famous. I mean, will help, and or if you need endorsement from an expert, that's where you do it. In other words, let's say you have a book on how I cured my own cancer, right? But you're not a doctor. Well, then you want a review from a doctor.
Yeah, that kind of mitigates the skepticism.
Yeah.
Right. So, or if you write a book on owls, a Sibley review is probably better than Lindsay Lohan or something.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, this has been a lot of it's been a pithy session. I'd like to invite everyone out there to go to the event page and post any other questions about reviews if you're watching, and about book reviews and how to get them and your experiences. I happen to believe it's an awesome way to sort of get some mileage out of an independently published book, and an integral part of a indie marketing plan. So I'm going to take some of these suggestions from Steve and Mary and write them down and try and mend my ways and get my galleys out earlier. But anything else you'd like to say, Steve, that you got coming up?
Not really. I'm in the process of sorting through huge numbers of book proposals and trying to pick one or two that that I can devote myself to in the next few months.
Do those just come in unsolicited? And
yes, all the time. And,
how's Final Rights doing?
It's still doing very well, and
I love that book. It's just the best.
Yeah.
That's Steve's wife, Lisa, is an expert on funeral rights and practices, and
editing made easy is plunking right along too. So
is it really? Yeah. Who's that audience on that?
Anybody who wants to write better.
I do.
And without doing a lot of work at it. In other words, it's people who don't really care about pluperfect participles and all the, technical terms, but a quick and easy way to avoid mistakes in writing and to make your writing more effective. And
well, I think with social media, I've noticed kind of a decline in people's attention to, good, well-crafted sentences. And
but there are a lot of people who have blogs and websites and even write publicity copy for their own books and stuff and all that kind of stuff. It's for that kind of person who, it's just kind of a reminder of the various principles, that it takes to it's quick and easy, which is what the appeal is.
Well, thank you, and we'll close it out here. UpperAccess.com is Steve's company. PiercePress.com is mine, and Mary is at MaryRowan.com. Mary Rowan Books. Anyway, they're on the event page. I've got a book coming out in the next 6 months, The Day Tripper for New England, for Greater Boston, I'm sorry. And the Pedagogy Handbook is coming out on January 1st on Public Domain Day, which is our annual date for the revise. And I've also got a children's imprint called Giggle Quick Books, which we have a couple of new titles coming out on. So we'll be publicizing those according to the guidelines presented here by Steve Carlson and company. Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Good to see you.